Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon, and then I post it up to Facebook. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. I would like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp, BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. They are an online counseling service. They hook you up with online counselors. Hello, darling. They hook you up with online counselors. They are international. So if you are outside of the US and you want to get to a US counselor because, say, for example, your country is making you wait 8 months to a year, don't get me started. You can get on to betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez and fill out a bunch of questions, and then they will hook you up with a counselor here in the US. You guys will have to work out the time difference, though, because there is a time difference. So, but also if you are in the US and you are in a small town and you do not want to see the counselor that is in your town, and you don't want to have to drive 3 hours to find the next counselor, get on to BetterHelp with a P, BETTER, help.com/Chris Godinez, and they will hook you up with a counselor in your state. They are all licensed and they are all master's level or PhD level. So there that is. Okay. Wow. So a few things I want to cover before we dive into the topic of trauma response. Today is Mother's Day. So for those of us who, lost their mom, my mom died 4 years ago. 4 years ago? Good Lord. 5 years ago. Wow. Yes, 5 years ago. Jeez Louise. Or for people who had a mother that was narcissistic or abusive or whatever, this is a tough day. So I just want to remind you guys, take really good care of yourselves. Drink a lot of water, be gentle with you, feel the feels, journal it out, and really just take care of yourself. Today is a tough day. And Father's Day is going to be the same thing. If you had a father that was abusive or if your dad has passed, Father's Day is going to be the same thing. So really take good care of yourself since this is Mother's Day. So lots of water, journal, feel the feels. Don't make yourself wrong for feeling. Just feel it and write it out. So there that is. Okay. Also, these beauties are still available and sitting in my hallway. So they're available on chrisgodinez.com. Just go into there, find the shop button, click on that, and it will take you to this. So it's $24.99 and shipping is included, guys. I just want to get them out of my hallway. That would be lovely because I keep tripping on them. So anyway, there that is. Also, books that I highly recommend. Shahida Arabi, The Highly Sensitive Person's Guide to Dealing with Toxic People. Amazing. I recommend it to all my clients. And of course, Susanna Quintana, who's awesome sauce. I love this woman. So Susanna Quintana at SusannaQuintana.com. You're Still That Girl. You can get the book there. She's awesome. She's just a wonderful person. And I cannot wait to start talking to her about possibly doing some sort of seminars and stuff once we are able to gather again, which will be lovely because I miss everybody. That's the one thing I was talking to her about. I was like, I miss seeing people. I miss hugging people. I miss, socializing. So yeah, there that is. Splitting, if you're going through a divorce, and this is by Randy Krieger and Bill Eddy. So this is a great book. If you're going through a divorce with one of these people, this is always good to know. And of course, not last but not least, my two books. Oh, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him cha-cha. And What's Wrong with Your Dad, available on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. And I do the reading of them. So there that is. Okay, so let's dive into trauma response. So CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So the C stands for complex post-traumatic stress disorder, meaning it happened over and 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 over again, right? You get out of it and now you've got all of these PTSD symptoms that are going on. So what are some trauma responses that we may not think about that are really trauma responses? So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Seriously. Panic attacks. Those are all trauma responses. You panic over the strangest things that you wouldn't normally think of as causing panic. With somebody who's been through complex post-traumatic stress disorder will affect them. It will be a trigger. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So fight, obviously, you want to fight back against whatever is going on. Flight, run the heck away. Freeze. Like a great example is if somebody who reminds you of your abuser comes to you, right? If your fight is your normal go-to, which is, that's mine, then you would be like, oh, hell no, and you would be like, game on, right? So that's a trauma response. It's like, I'm not on this planet, not under my watch, that kind of thing. The next one, flight. Okay, so somebody who is reminding you of your abuser comes up. So they start their stuff and you're like, whoa, peace out, I'm gone. Like you literally are like running out of the room and panicking at the same time, And then freeze, they're coming at you, they're yelling at you, and you can't. You just can't. You can't even, like seriously, like freezing is like, you freeze and your brain just freezes. And it is so frustrating to watch. And it's so frustrating to have happen to you because it's like, you're watching somebody that you're just like, don't put up with that. And that person is just going at them and they're just like frozen, right? So that's the freeze response. That is a trauma response. So when somebody reminds you of the abuser and you freeze, that's a trauma response because those are really hard to overcome. So for me, if I can't fight, I will flee. That's, if I can't win this, I'm going to get the hell out, to stay safe. And with freezing, it's the same thing. If I can just freeze, maybe they'll go away. Now, I don't do that, but I've seen other people do it. So that is a trauma response, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So you're suddenly giving into this person who reminds you of your abuser. And you're sitting there. It's almost like this duality of why am I doing this, but you're doing it. It's the same thing with freeze. Why am I doing this, but you're doing it? Same thing with fight. Same thing with flee. It's like, why am I running away? Well, because I'm trying to stay safe. So those are all trauma responses, and they will come up in the weirdest ways. So, for example, one thing I cannot stand are places that are too crowded. And this was even before the pandemic. I just don't like, people running into me and bumping into me and things like that, because it just sets me on edge. So John and I, one Christmas, were at a mall, and this is when we lived in LA. And I literally started having a meltdown. I was like, get me the bleepity bleep bleep out of here right the bleep now, because I was just about ready to start screaming. I was like, get me out, because it was fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So it was, obviously I couldn't fight. Everybody was there shopping, freezing, not a good idea. You'd get run into. Fleeing, that was a great option, So, and where that comes from, I'm not sure, but, because it's not like I had a lot of people around me abusing me, unless you think about elementary school, maybe. But, it was like, okay, I got to get out, and I couldn't even identify why. It's just, I didn't like all of the people crowding in around me and hitting me and bumping me and, being rude and, all that stuff. So yeah, so it's unconscious. We're not even aware of it until it happens. And then once we were out of the mall, I was sitting there literally yoga breathing, going, okay, hold the breath. Everything's fine. Breathe out through the nose. Okay. Because I'm like trying to calm myself down. And John's like, are you okay? And I'm like, really not. So that's a trauma response. So yeah. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, those are trauma responses. So emotions can be a trauma response. So anxiety, obviously we've been abused. So we have a great deal of anxiety, and especially when somebody reminds us, oh, I need to turn off the sound. Hello. There we go. Especially when someone reminds us of the abuser, and that anxiety is what then creates the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. So anxiety, anger. So anger is also a trauma response. Irritability, that is one of the classic signs of PTSD. So you're irritable, you're like on edge, you're angry when you can't fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. It's like for me, it's like if I can't fight and I can't flee, I then get pissed and I jump back into fight. So, because it's like, I'm going to stay safe, mother clucker. That's, that's all there is to it. I am going to stay safe. So yeah, anger is part of the trauma response. Sadness, tears, that kind of thing. Highly, what's the word I'm looking for? We're very, easy to emotions. We're very easy to emotions. So, we suddenly find ourselves in tears over something that reminds us of our childhood, or reminds us of the abuse, or reminds us, of something that was traumatic. So, for me, I have a really hard time watching a lot of different movies because I can't stand anything that's too violent, although I do like the MCU, but it's a comic book, so I can kind of get through that. But I don't like really violent movies. I don't like horror movies. I don't like, things like that. But if there's some storyline, I will find myself in tears. And poor John is like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Give me a minute," and then I'll just kind of work through it. So yes, emotions are right there. And that comes with being a healthy, normal person. But it also gets exacerbated by the trauma. So, especially if we've worked through all the fear of having emotions, like for me, for the first, geez Louise, 20 plus years of my life, I did not allow myself to cry because it wasn't safe. Because the second I started crying, my dad would give me a reason to cry. In other words, he'd hit me, and so it wasn't safe to cry. And I had to work through my therapist with my therapist in Oregon on allowing myself to cry because it's normal to cry. And now, of course, it's like I cry at the drop of a freaking hat, and that's good. I would rather do that than sit there and be emotionally constipated, I think is the best way to put it. So yeah, tears, suicidal thoughts, suicidal gestures. Those are trauma responses because nobody teaches us how to deal with the cray-cray that we are living with as little kids. So when I was a kid, to be perfectly honest, I think I've talked about this, and I know I talk about it in my book, What's Wrong with Your Dad. I was suicidal as a teenager. I was, because I couldn't see a way out because my dad was so crazy and my mom was enabling him, and it was frightening, and I couldn't deal with his crazy because he was abusing us on every level you could possibly think of, mentally, physically, emotionally, sexually, the whole thing, religiously. Thanks, Dad. So, it was awful. And the only way I could think of was suicide. And I seriously entertained the idea. And then, thank God, I didn't do it, and my sister kind of helped me. My oldest sister helped me and got me into therapy and, got me out of there. So, yeah, suicidal thoughts, suicidal gestures. Absolutely. Inappropriate laughter. I've been accused of that several times. So sometimes when I get nervous, I'll laugh. Laughing at a funeral, that kind of thing. But also when confronted with an abuser, sometimes I will just start laughing at them. Dangerous to do. I wouldn't recommend it. Sometimes it works, but it's a nervous thing. It's like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to take this one seriously, that kind of thing. So, laughter that's really not appropriate, not necessarily inappropriate, but it's not necessarily maybe the best option. So people they nervous laugh all the time because it's a scary, heavy topic, and that happens in therapy all the time. People start dealing with these really scary, heavy topics and they'll start laughing or something. And then I'll have to be like, okay, do you want to be laughing or is that really something else that's coming out? Should we be talking about maybe other emotions, that kind of thing. So yeah, those are all trauma responses. Deep fear of trust. So we don't trust. And it's so funny. John mentioned to me the other day, he's like, "You're really not very trusting, are you?" So we had a yard sale and then we put a bunch of stuff up on Facebook Marketplace. And we were selling stuff. And so I literally was acting as the muscle. Like I walked out there with my pepper spray and I was ready to go to town if somebody tried to steal something or, whatever. And John's just like, "You realize it's unlikely somebody's going to do that." I'm like, "Well, yeah, but," So yeah, I have a deep distrust and it's because of my dad and it's because of my mom, because I learned very quickly that you cannot trust people who are telling you to trust them. So, I do have a very, I still do that to this day. I don't trust easily. I'm kind of like from the show me state, it's like, show me, prove it. Prove to me that you are trustworthy, that kind of thing. So yeah. Terminal aloneness. So this is something I don't think we've really talked about, but every single survivor of abuse, especially abuse from childhood, feels separate from the rest of society. It's like there's this glass wall in between us and other people, or us and other kids, or us and people who have not gone through abuse. So it's like this feeling of separateness, like we're somehow outsiders. That's the best way I can put it. Every single survivor of abuse expresses this concept, this feeling of terminal aloneness. Like, I don't think these people get what I went through. I don't think these people understand where I'm coming from. and that's especially true on a day like today, Mother's Day, when we go no contact with toxic family members, moms and dads. We go no contact with them, and then we have some jackwagon who doesn't understand abuse start, making us wrong for going no contact. That's a real insult, and that's also a real feeling of you don't get it. You truly do not get this, So the sense of aloneness or this sense of separateness, and that is something we have to work on. And that's part of the reason why I love doing these videos, is because it lets everyone know you are not alone. There are literally probably millions of us out there that have survived abuse and have all gone through the exact same thing, and that there are other people on the face of this planet that get it. So, honest to God, share these videos with as many people as you can, because that sense of aloneness we need to get rid of. But that is a trauma response. It is. Flashbacks, visual, somatic, and emotional. So visual flashbacks happen when we get caught up in a thought, a memory, a thing that happened in the past, and it is happening before our eyes. It's like the lights are on, the engine is running, and we are watching it play like a movie, okay? The visual one. The somatic one is when we feel it in our bodies. So that's a physical thing. So for me, my dad was very abusive, and I would always get stomach aches. I would always get sick to my stomach. So, throwing up is my least favorite thing ever on the face of the planet. So when there is something that is triggering me really badly, I will have that physical kind of response of wanting to throw up, throw up the nastiness, throw up the abuse, throw up the, get rid of it, get it out. So yeah, somatic, and then emotional flashbacks. So emotional flashbacks, like I was talking about, the volatility of the emotions, not emotional dysregulation, but the volatility of the emotions. It's like we start remembering something that happened, and the next thing you know, you're tearful and you're crying or you're angry or whatever. So remember, our amygdala cannot tell the difference. This is our amygdala. It sits behind the ears about an inch inside. The amygdala cannot tell the difference between past, present, future, real threat, thought about a real threat, or an emotional threat. And so when a thought hits it, it takes it as, oh my God, here and now, here and now, here and now. And then you start the whole cascading events of hippocampus, hypothalamus, they release cortisol, body tenses up. Now we're not breathing. There's no oxygen CO2 exchange. And then another part of the brain goes, oh my God, we really are going to die. Holy crap, we need more energy. And it tells the adrenal gland to release everything at once. So now we're shaking like a leaf, racing thoughts, pounding heart, puppy little breaths, not going anywhere, which is never a good idea. And at this point, we either go into a panic attack or we go into a rage attack, or we just start crying and we can't stop. So it's that is a trauma response. So yeah, it's part of the panic. It's part of the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So visual, somatic, emotional. Okay, hypervigilance. So always on the lookout. Always on the lookout for danger. Always on the lookout for danger. It's almost like the up periscope just gets stuck. And it's like, where's the danger? 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 And it's really hard because our brains get tired. It's exhausting, but it's like a self-soothing kind of in a way, because if we convince ourselves that if we're hypervigilant, that we're going to be safe. And that's not always necessarily true. So the hypervigilance really takes us out of the present moment and has us living in a future that has not happened. Kind of like when I assumed that whoever was coming over had ill intent. Instead of being like, oh, great, somebody's going to buy the chairs, or whatever. It was like, okay, yeah, let's make sure they have cash in hand. Let's make sure they're not, going to rob us or, whatever. So that hypervigilance takes us out of the moment. It prevents us from living. It does. And it's a maladaptive way of trying to stay safe. The other thing that we do is the startle response. So, if anybody raises a hand to me, I immediately get into position to be like, try me, fight. That's my thing. That's my jam. But yeah, or if John comes around the corner and I'm not expecting it, I will let out a scream that I'm fairly certain everyone in the neighborhood could hear. So yeah, it's that startle response. It's that, what is this, kind of thing. So that is a trauma response. The startle response is a trauma response. It's because we've either been hit or we've been frightened. You know, that's another thing that I see that abusers do to their kids is they think it's funny, don't get me started, to scare them. Like they enjoy it, like sadistically. You know, my dad used to do that. He used to enjoy scaring the crap out of us, and he was just not a nice guy. So, yeah, so it's the hypervigilance, always being on alert, 24/7. Where's the danger? Where's the danger? Where's the danger? Where's the danger? And that's exhausting. That is exhausting, and it is really hard to get that to stand down. And that is going to take working on the PTSD, the CPTSD. So obviously, CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving, Pete Walker. Get it. There's also his book on Audible. I don't like the person who reads it because they sound weird, but if you need to listen to it and then work the workbook, do it. So get that book, start working through all of that, because this is where all of this comes from, is the abuse. So, okay, hypervigilance, startle response, those are all trauma responses. Losing our sense of security, losing our faith that the world is good or kind or safe. You know, we lose our safety. And in some cases, we lose our faith, especially if our abuser was using religion to manipulate, control, abuse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really important to separate yourself out from that and decide what works for you. You know, maybe no religion works for you. Maybe the universe works for you. Maybe Wicca works for you. Maybe Christianity works for you. Maybe Buddhism works for you. Explore. Explore, 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 and work on that part of the abuse, because that is another way that abusers have infiltrated what healthy people don't have to put up with. Like they don't ever get that, oh, the world isn't safe and the world isn't trustworthy and the world isn't, you know, because their parents were safe and trustworthy. But with us, if we had parents that were abusive, we're going to grow up with that. Show me, prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it, don't believe it. Prove it, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, we lose our sense of security. We lose our sense of safety. We don't have that sense that the world is good, you know, and in some cases it's not, but in a lot of cases it is. So, you know, it's really important to get back to that. How do I explain it? Abusers hate childlike wonder. They do, because children have this amazing ability to see the world and they see the beauty in it. They do. If you ever watch a kid play out in the field, they will just both, you know, fixate on flowers or a slug or something and be fascinated by it and just, you know, wow, this is really cool. This is brand new. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, this is great. You know, that kind of thing. Abusers hate that. And they try to literally, in my case, beat that out of you, you know. And so you want to get back to that sense of childlike wonder. You know, the world is beautiful, that people are good, not all of them, but most of them, you know, and get back to that sense of there is beauty here. There is kindness here. There is goodness here. Not everyone is going to be wanting to take advantage of you. And that's the one that I struggle with. I just mentioned that, you know, it's like I still struggle with trust. I do. I have managed to get back that childlike wonder about the universe and nature and, you know, things like that, but I still struggle with trusting people. So yeah, so that is really important to work on. Okay, your inner child acts out of the blue. All of a sudden you find yourself having a temper tantrum like a 3-year-old. Whew, that's a trauma response when you don't get your way. When you're not getting what you want, you stamp your feet and you have a temper tantrum, and, you know, and you try to take it out on the people around you. That's a trauma response. Now, that needs to be worked on, because that means that the inner child is running the show. You do not want the inner child to run the show. The inner child is going to do the opposite of what they should be doing. So gentleness with the inner child, write the inner child a love letter, but make it very clear you are the adult and they get to be a kid, but they do not get to run the show. So you want to get the Inner Child Workbook by Catherine Taylor. Now, both the CPTSD book and the Catherine Taylor book are going to be triggering. They are going to bring up trauma responses, because we are going back and we are working through all of the stuff that happened to us at these different developmental ages. So like I said, I had one client that, you know, called me up and was like, you know, my throat is rough and I don't understand why. And I feel like I can't breathe. And I feel like I've been screaming and crying. And I said, okay, how old were you working on? I was working on, you know, toddler age. Okay. How long did they leave you in the crib? And at this point, they lost it and started crying. And oh my God, I was in there for hours screaming for them to come get me. So it's going to bring up trauma. It's going to bring up things that happened when you were a kid somatically. So that's a somatic response that that person had, of the rough throat, feeling like they'd been screaming and crying, but nothing was going on. What the heck is happening? Remembering, maybe not having a cognitive memory of it so much, but a somatic body memory of it. So The Body Keeps Score, Bessel van de Kolk. Excellent book. Get it, read it. If your trauma responses are more somatic, I would read The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van de Kolk. Great book. In conjunction with all of these other books. Yeah, absolutely. So the inner child will act out. It will have a temper tantrum. It will, say and do things that an adult wouldn't necessarily do. And that's kind of like your clue of, oh, how old do I feel right now? What's going on? What's happening? So you want to make sure that you're working on that and comforting that inner child and letting them know, yeah, you're not going to get your way. So you know what? It's still okay. I am the adult. You're the kid. You get to go play. I get to deal with this. And then you have an adult conversation, an adult reaction to whatever's going on. So yeah. Toxic shame. Oh my God. That is definitely a trauma response to the weirdest things. So we will lay in bed at night and think of every single thing we've ever done wrong. That's a trauma response. Thinking of every single thing that you've ever done wrong and then beating the living crap out of yourself is a trauma response. Hold on a second. And the reason it is a trauma response, think about this. Our parents, if they were alcoholic, if they were drug addicts, if they were narcissists, they had this perfectionism going on. Everybody around them had to be perfect because everyone had to reflect back how perfect they were, when in fact, they were the least perfect people walking the face of the planet. So any little mistake we made, our noses got rubbed in it. Absolutely. And we got made wrong for doing things differently or not doing things the way they did or whatever. I mean, prime example is mother-in-law comes in and makes the daughter-in-law wrong for the way she's making grilled cheese. Who cares whether you use butter or mayonnaise? It doesn't matter. The end result is a grilled cheese sandwich, correct? So yeah, but the mother-in-law couldn't drop it. Well, why are you doing it that way? That's stupid. I don't do it that way. I use butter. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Shut the hell up. Jeez. You know what I'm saying? So it's a toxic shame. And so, make wrong. And so what we do at night is we'll lay there, the little kid, obviously the inner child, will lay there and go, oh my gosh, this person went after me for the way I cooked. And oh my gosh, and maybe I did this wrong. And wait, I did that wrong. And oh my God, and I'm terrible. And so we start beating ourselves up. This is why I say when you start working on self-esteem, hugely important to do the mirror work. Hi, good to see you. Have a great day. I give you permission to like yourself, and then walk out. And then at night, you do something similar. Hi, good to see you again. You had a wonderful day. So good to see you. Here are 3 things you did right today. You did this right, you did this right, and you did this right. I want you to go to sleep and have wonderful dreams, and then go to bed. Because we never do that. We learn from our abusers to never, ever give ourselves credit for what we've done right, because they take credit for everything we've done. Or we learn that we've got to go over everything we've done wrong so that it doesn't happen again, so that we don't get punished, which just creates toxic shame. And so when you recognize that you're doing that, you have to literally do thought stopping. Thank you for your input. Shut the bleepity bleep bleep up. I am not playing. Have a nice day. I'm not inviting you in for coffee because you're going to stay for breakfast. No, thank you. Go play in traffic. Bye-bye. And you send it on its way. And you may have to do that several times. The other thing you can do too is write a letter to the toxic shame. Who does it really belong to? Chapter 3, I think, of CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving. He talks about, maybe it's chapter 4. It's 3 or 4, one of the two. He talks about putting it back onto the abuser. Who does this really belong to? It's not you. This is not your shame. This is not your issue. This is not your anger. Whose is it? Oh, dear abuser, I am returning your toxic shame to you. It is not mine. Have fun with it. Bye-bye. Love me. And then trot it out to the barbecue and burn it. Give it back to the person it belongs to. It's not yours. Okay. How are we doing on time? Oh, almost there. Okay. Oh, wanting to be rescued, needing a good mom or dad or knight or princess in shining armor. So that's the little kid. That is a trauma response. That is the inner child desperate for a mommy or a daddy or somebody to protect them. You must become your own rescuer. You cannot look outside of yourself. It has to come from in here. It's not going to happen out there. You're not going to find it out there. But the inner child desperately wants to be loved and to be protected and cherished, which is what all children want. But when we've got an abuser or two for parents, the inner child doesn't get that. And then as we grow up and the inner child is still not being dealt with, the abuse is not being dealt with, the inner child starts picking our partners. This is why I keep saying your picker is broken. Stop. Do not get into another relationship until you are in relationship with your inner child. Thanks for playing. So the inner child will look outside and go, oh, there's somebody who kind of sort of reminds me of mom, dad. I know if I can make them love me, I prove mom and dad wrong. Half of a doo-doo sandwich, half of a doo-doo sandwich, total doo-doo sandwich. And that's how we end up in abusive relationships. So it's really important to work on that desire to have a rescuer or to have a knight or princess in shining armor. You know, that's not going to happen. You have to rescue yourself. You have to love yourself enough to get out of toxic relationships, to get out of abuse, to get out of abusive workplaces, to get out of, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not up to somebody else. It's up to us. Okay. And so that means working on inner child stuff. Dissociation. Oh, hell yeah. So somebody wrote in and was like, when I'm confronted with somebody who reminds me of my abuser, I check out. Like, I'm there and I'm listening, but I'm not there. And I'm like, that's normal. That is totally, dissociation is totally normal. That is a trauma response to a trigger. That is a trauma response to an abuser. That is a trauma response. Absolutely. And the dissociation can be as mild as you freeze, right? And you're there, but you're unable to speak or do anything, to all the way to, and you check out mentally, all the way to you're watching it from the corner of the room. So, you know, it just depends on your particular trauma response. You know, it's like, it could be mild, it could be major. So, and that's normal. That's normal, guys. That is normal. When we've been abused, that's what we do to stay safe. That's what we do to survive. That's what we do to work through whatever this person is throwing at us that's not ours. So yeah, dissociation is absolutely to be expected. Muscle armoring, absolutely a trauma response. How many of us have this going on? Like, our ears and our shoulders have become one, and those muscles are like cables, okay? Yeah, muscle armoring, and especially if we had physical abuse going on, whether it was sexual or violence. It's violent whether it's sexual or not, but, you know, violence like hitting or sexual abuse, we armor. Our muscles get tight because we're trying to keep ourselves safe. So really important. Somatic, it's a somatic response. It's a body response. Bessel van de Kolk, The Body Keeps Score. Read it. Excellent book. Muscle armoring happens, and it's really important to start working on that. So something John and I just started doing is Pilates. So we're working on lengthening and strengthening and relaxing, releasing, that kind of thing. I mean, of course, we also still work out with Jess, but Pilates is a great thing to do. And I'm sold on it. One of my sisters, I just talked to her this morning. She was like, oh my God, I'm so excited you're doing this. I'm doing it too. And it's wonderful. And boy, does it help. And I'm like, well, given that we had the same dad, yeah, okay, good. I'm glad to know that. So yeah, muscle armoring. So it's when the muscles just get incredibly tense. And it's because we are in constantly a state of high alert all the time, because we're constantly waiting for danger. And so your body, the amygdala, responds as if we are in danger. And so we're tense. We're ready to go. We're like, okay, I'm ready to go. Okay. You know, it's like, so yeah. So it just, yeah, physical, somatic. So that's something to be worked on. Massage can help with that. Depends. Some people who have been abused can't stand massage because you're being touched. And that could be a trigger in and of itself. So something to be aware of. So if you don't like being touched, don't get a massage. If you have worked through that part of the abuse and you can handle getting a massage, I recommend it. But if it triggers you, don't. Pilates is nice because nobody's touching you. You're doing your own thing. You're stretching. They're just, giving you, showing you, modeling for you what to do, and then you do it kind of thing. So, but look into ways to help those muscles relax, because we do that in order to be ready to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So yeah, that's a trauma response. I'm going over time. I'm so sorry. I will get to the questions. Hang on. Autoimmune diseases. I have said this before. I'm going to say it again. When we find ourselves with chronic fatigue, when we find ourselves with autoimmune diseases, 9 times out of 10, I will have those clients do an ACE test, the child trauma test, and they'll have trauma like nobody's business. So autoimmune diseases, again, a somatic response to trauma. So if you've got autoimmune diseases, I would strongly suggest working on the trauma, working through taking your power back, working through the trauma that happened to you, comforting the inner child, reading Bessel van der Kolk's book, getting with a good trauma therapist, doing EFT, doing EMDR, doing CBT, doing DBT, whatever it takes. Get through those traumas so that your body stops turning in on itself. That's an autoimmune disease. And why do we do that? Well, I have some theories. I don't have any actual backup for this, but my opinion is that when somebody who is supposed to love us and who gave us life, supposedly, turns on us and tells us that we're worthless, we internalize that message. And pretty soon the body goes, okay, I might as well just kill myself, or I might as well just damage myself. So I think it's really important. Self-esteem workbook, Glenn Schiraldi, or You Are a Badass, Jen Sincero. Disease to Please, Harriet Breaker, Boundaries, because self-esteem and boundaries go hand in hand. CPTSD, From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker, working on putting all of that crap back to the abuser. This is all the abuser's crap, not yours. Inner Child Workbook, Catherine Taylor. So those are the books I recommend for that. So yes, autoimmune diseases absolutely, I believe, have a root in trauma. Absolutely. People pleasing. This is the last one I have on the list. So people pleasing, and this is part of the fawn. So when we are confronted with an abuser and they're, abuse, or whatever, they remind us of, mom, dad, grandparents, uncle, aunt, whoever the abuser was, we find ourselves people pleasing, fawning, giving in, trying to appease them, trying to get them on our side, trying to make them happy, and that is codependency. So that is a trauma response. So Codependent No More, Beyond Codependent No More, both by Melanie Beattie. The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker. Who's Pulling Your Strings, also by Harriet Breaker. So those are all trauma responses. Another trauma response, quickly, I know I'm running out of time, I'm sorry. Another trauma response is this need for revenge. So this tit for tat kind of thing. And it's child thing. That's a kid thing. That's an inner child thing. So if you find yourself very, very, very mired in, well, I'm going to get them back and I'm going to show them and I'm going to do this and da-da-da. How old are you? How old are you? That is a trauma response. You need to step out of that circle and not have any contact with this abuser, because you're never going to get what you think you're going to get with this abuse, revenge, fantasy thing. The best thing to do to an abuser, guys, listen to me now, believe me later. They're narcissists for the most part. And if they're not narcissists, they're psychopaths. And they cannot stand being ignored. If you really want to get your power back, go no contact, boot them out of your life, live your best life without them. That's going to drive them cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So, jump back. All right, let's dive into the questions. Sorry, I went a little over time, but yeah, tit for tat is a trauma response, and it is a child trauma response. So figure out how old you are. Figure out how old you are and who you wanted to get revenge on. And then write and burn an angry letter. Dear mom, dear dad, bleep the bleepity bleep bleep out of bleeping bleep you. How dare you? How dare you do this? You did this, 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 and this. Guess what? I'm raising the rent. You don't get to live in my head rent free one more second. I am going no contact. Have a nice life. I'm going to live my life really well. Have fun. Bye-bye. And then trot it out to the barbecue and burn it. Yeah, absolutely. Can trauma response change? My first response used to be freeze, but now it seems to be fight. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The trauma responses change as we get healthier and as we start working through things and start experiencing things. And yeah, it absolutely can change. Things are fluid. And we can revert back. We can go back to the freeze at any time. It just kind of depends on our mood and what's happening and what's coming at us. So yeah, it can absolutely change. Because like I said, it's like mine is usually fight. But I've also found on a lot of occasions, I want to flee. I want to get the heck out. I want to just be like, okay, we're done. Bye-bye. That kind of thing. Can something like surgery or injury release trauma from the body? Well, it can, yeah, because think about it. The body and the mind are not separate. And this is where I get so upset at people who seem to think that this and this are somehow two separate things. No, we are all one. It is all one. It is all one. So the thoughts influence the body influences the thoughts. It goes back and forth. So yeah, can it release trauma from the body? It can. It can also, surgery can sometimes create PTSD. I've had several clients that had horrible experiences in the hospital where, they wake up in the middle of surgery, or they had orderlies that were abusive or whatever, and they've got PTSD now from having had surgery. So yeah, it's possible. It absolutely is possible. Oh, for heaven's sakes. My therapist told me I would always have suicidal ideation because of my childhood traumas. Is it true the suicidal ideations will never go away? No. Get a different therapist. Get a therapist that's willing to work on the childhood traumas. When the childhood traumas go away, you will find that the suicidal ideation will also start to lessen. So get a different therapist that works with trauma and that is willing to help you through that and giving you tools to deal with or cope with the suicidal thoughts or the suicidal ideation. So in other words, when I got out of my family of origin, thank you, Bufa Baba, Buddha, God, Jesus, whoever. When I got away from them, things got a hell of a lot better. The suicidal thoughts were still there, but there wasn't so much intent behind them. It was just a thought kind of thing. And as I worked with my therapist and she started giving me tools, okay, you have this thought, what are you going to do to replace it? What's the next right step? How can you empower yourself? How can you take your power back? Because that's really what it is. When we're in a situation that is intolerable and we're being abused, it's intolerable, right? And we're trying to find a way out. We're trying to find a way to not hurt so horribly. And that's why we have the thoughts of suicide, because we don't want to hurt so horribly. So it's important that your therapist give you something to replace the suicidal thoughts that you can do to self-soothe, that you can do to get out of the situation, that you can do to help yourself and take your power back. That's why we have those thoughts, is because we are unempowered, and that's the only way we see out. So it's important to start finding other ways out and replace. And that's why I'm saying get with a different therapist, get with somebody who's going to give you those tools that will help you. So in other words, I don't think I've had a suicidal thought in literally decades. And the last one I did was probably in my 20s, probably, and I'm 56 now. So when that thought popped up, I used the tools that I'd been learning from my sister, from therapists, from, whatever. And it was like, okay, no, I'm not going to give them the satisfaction. Nope. Sorry. What's the next right step? What can I do to live my best life? So absolutely get with a different therapist. Okay. Yes. All right. If I'm unable to defend or protect myself in a threatening situation, I later tend to endlessly ruminate about protecting myself in the same situation. Is this a trauma response? Yes. How many of us, after dealing with jackwagons, either at work or home or, whatever, come back and go, oh, I should have said this. I could have said that. I would have said that. Why didn't I do that? Well, because you couldn't, you shouldn't, you didn't, so let it go. So yes, that is a trauma response. Been there, done that. Sometimes I still do that. You're absolutely correct. Yes, that is a trauma response. So when the rumination starts, oh, you should have done this. You could have done, why didn't you say that? Well, you could. Okay, thank you, brain. That was lovely. None of that happened. Take a deep breath. Forgive yourself. Forgiving yourself. Colin Tipping, Radical Forgiveness for the Self. Colin Tipping. So he's got a whole series of books. He's unfortunately passed. I love this man. he's got a series of books. One was called Radical Forgiveness. That's about forgiving other people. Radical Forgiveness for the Self, also by Colin Tipping. So it's about forgiving ourselves. It's like, okay, well, we froze, or we, didn't say what we could have or should have or would have. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. I'm going to start singing a Disney song here pretty soon. But we all do that. We all been there, done that, still occasionally do that. Yep, you betcha. You betcha. That is a trauma response. So start working with that. Start working with that. Get rid of those perfect pictures. Get rid of the coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's a mind thing. You know what I'm saying? It's a way to mess yourself up. It's a way to really take your mind on a trip that you don't want to go on. So coulda, shoulda, woulda. As soon as you hear that, oh, thank you for your input. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. I am not playing your game. I didn't. I couldn't. I wouldn't. So go play traffic. Bye-bye. Let it go. Let it go. So yeah, that is definitely a trauma response. Good question. Thank you. Do narc parents instill fear on in the children on purpose? Yes. Abso-freaking-lutely. Fear is a very powerful manipulation tool. Hold on. Let me finish this question. Do they do it on purpose to be able to infantilize them during their lives, even into adulthood, as the child becomes emotionally dysregulated? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Fear is a very, very powerful tool, and it's a way to keep kids stuck. Because if the kid is constantly going, oh, if I do this, what's this? This is going to happen. If I do that, well, this is going to happen. And so they keep them fearful in a way to keep them never moving forward. That's a great way to manipulate. I mean, there was one disordered person who had children who would show the kids burned children and mutilated children. And if you do this, you're going to have this happen. And if you do that, you're going to have that happen. And it terrified them. It terrified them for years. So yeah, they do that. It's absolutely intentional. It is absolutely to paralyze the child. It is absolutely to cause the child to look at the parent as the only safe thing, when in fact, that abusive parent is the only dangerous thing in their life. So yeah, absolutely. And it is a way to create emotional dysregulation. You betcha. That's what I'm saying. Borderline personality disorder is rooted in trauma. You deal with that trauma, you get the emotions regulated, you're okay. You can deal with the trauma triggers and things like that. If you don't, then you start sliding down the spectrum. But yeah, they absolutely, you bet your bippy. Yep, you are 100% correct. They do that on purpose. They know what they're doing. No sane adult is going to intentionally terrorize their child. No sane adult is going to intentionally terrorize their child and create fear and instill fear. Now, you're going to obviously teach them boundaries, and you're going to teach them, okay, this is dangerous. Be careful. Here are the possible outcomes, that kind of thing. But you're not going to be like, oh, you're going to, blow up, or, whatever they do. And they always go to the extreme. They always, always, always go to the extreme. You betcha. Okay. Do you have any advice for chronic nightmares? Regarding CPTSD. I've worked and made a lot of progress with a therapist, but this is one component I still struggle with. You're not alone. So chronic nightmares, that is a part of CPTSD. Absolutely. So there's some things you could do. You could try. You could try thingy. Hello, brain gone. Not post-hypnotic suggestion, but like subliminal stuff. So if you can play some tapes that have like, you're safe, you're okay, nature sounds, that kind of thing. Those can help. You could also try hypnosis. You could also try EMDR. That would be one. Or EFT would be another good one. Writing them out, analyzing them for yourself. What are they telling you? What are they telling you? Because sometimes when we start analyzing them for ourselves and we start working through them, we can kind of see why we're having them. So yeah, so I would try the subliminal stuff to see if you can do that. The other thing you can do too is before you go to bed at night, you set the expectation. So when I go to sleep at night, I literally tell myself, you are going to sleep so well. You are just going to sleep soundly and have wonderful dreams. And then I usually do. Of course, I've been working on this for years, but in the beginning, yeah, I would have nightmares like nobody's business. You betcha. So, yeah, so you could try that, doing the mirror work. Hi, good to see you again. Here are 3 things you did right. You know what? You are going to sleep really well tonight. You've earned it. Sleep well. Have good dreams. Good night. And then go to bed and then tell yourself as you're falling asleep, I'm going to have great dreams. It's going to be a wonderful night's sleep. See how that goes? That's kind of like a suggestion kind of thing that you're giving to your subconscious. If that does not work, try EMDR, try EFT, try hypnosis. That would be the other suggestion I would do. So I know Ericksonian hypnosis is that. Be very careful with hypnosis. Make sure it's somebody who has been trained, who knows what the heck they're doing. So yeah, so that's a common issue. There are videos and audibles with soothing subliminal thoughts, like you're safe, you're okay, that kind of thing. So look into that. That is definitely something to look into. Absolutely. And you're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. I noticed that even though I'm working through trauma, I get upset all of a sudden when triggered and rage. Oh yeah. Yeah. I can notice the thought and be aware of it, but I can't seem to stop the adrenaline response. Okay. So as soon as you recognize that you're triggered, this is for everybody. This is for panic attacks. This is for rage attacks. So what is your first physical clue that you're getting triggered? For some people, they recognize it as soon as their heart starts pounding, or they recognize it as soon as they tense up, or they recognize it when their face starts to flush. Some people can't recognize it until they're already in the phase. Okay. So whenever you recognize it, oh, okay, this is a trigger. I need to breathe. So breathing is the key, because once the oxygen CO2 exchange is normalized, the brain then tells the adrenal gland to stop. And so it stops pumping out the adrenaline. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes for that to kind of calm down. And you just breathe. And it's going to take 5 or 10 minutes. So take a break, go to the bathroom, splash some water on your face, breathe. I'm safe. I'm okay. Everything's fine. I do not need to turn into the Incredible Hulk. I'm safe. I'm okay. Everything's fine. I don't need to kill them. Everything's good. It's like you do self-soothing talk, and breathing really is the key, but it's recognizing, when do you first notice it? Catch it when you first notice it. If you can catch it when you're starting to tense up, oh, okay, I'm triggered. Hold on, I'll be back in 10 minutes. And then you go, I'm safe. I'm okay. Everything's fine. And you breathe until you calm down. So really, it's really a matter of recognizing it and then immediately start the breathing, the recovery process. So the recovery process is getting oxygen back into the system, holding it for a few seconds, letting it out, self-soothing. I'm safe. I'm okay. I'm fine. Nothing here is going to hurt me. I'm all right. So remember, the subconscious is listening, and then the subconscious goes, oh, everything's fine, kids. Stand down. So work on that. And it's going to take practice. It's not going to happen overnight. Okay. After an extensive work on inner child, how does it feel to feel like a confident adult? Freeing. Wow. Freeing. Yes. It's kind of like no second guessing. I mean, that's the beautiful thing. Because think about it. Our abusers, especially if they were parental abusers, really, really loved to take the rug out from underneath us and make us second guess everything. You sure you want that for dinner? Are you sure you sure you want it? You sure, it's so nice to be able to make a decision and not sit there and agonize over it. Not sit there and second guess. It's freeing. It's amazing. It is so nice. And the peace that comes with that, the quiet, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. There's none of that negative Nancy, inner critic, coulda, shoulda, woulda, what if. It's just peaceful. It's calm. It's quiet. It's nice. And there's actually kind things being said. So yeah, it is so freeing, and it is so nice, and it is so worth it. And it is scary while you're doing it. I'm not going to lie. It's like you're going through it and you're like, this sucks, but then you get through it and you're like, wait a minute, that sucked. This is nice. I like this. So yeah, and it's a process, but it is freeing, and it is wonderful, and it is peaceful, and it's worth it. Is trauma bonding a form of control or abuse? Yes, both. So trauma bonding is where they do the intermittent positive rewards. So I love you, I love you, I love you, I hate you. Hate, 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 love. Love, hate, love, hate, love, hate. Hate, 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 love. So it's a way to get us to obey. And it's a way to get us living for the days when they are kind or somewhat normal and bunny ears, they're never normal, but, and that's what they do. It's dog training. It's dog training. It's just like, we don't give a treat every single time we train a dog. We give a treat every 3 times or maybe every 6 times. And eventually the dog will sit on its own when you just do a hand command. And why? Because they're waiting for the treat. They're waiting for where's the treat? Where's the treat? Where's the treat? Oh, I got the signal. Okay, what is it? Do I get a treat? That's what they're looking for. And that's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for them to be kind, which is the treat. So yes, trauma bonding is a form of control and it is abuse because healthy, normal people do not do that. Only abusers do that. Healthy, normal people don't do love, hate, love, hate, love, hate, love, hate, love, hate. And remember, everything an abuser does is with 100% fully aware of it. They know what they're doing. Don't give me this BS that they don't. They do. And it's intentional. There's an agenda. There's an agenda. And it is to control and it is to abuse. Because when they hate us, we do that rumination. What did I do wrong? How come they don't love me? How come? Well, maybe if I did this, second guessing. Maybe if I did that. Maybe if I twisted myself into a pretzel. Maybe I shouldn't have said this. Maybe I shouldn't have called them out on the name calling. Maybe I shouldn't have. See where I'm going with that? So that's how they get us to constantly beat ourselves up and live in this rumination and second guessing and all of that. So yeah, it absolutely is control and abuse. You betcha. Okay. I have been writing about my past. My blood pressure is up and I feel like I'm hyperventilating since I started writing. Could this bring on muscle armoring? It can, and it's funny because I tend to do the same thing. So when I'm writing the books about things that have happened, to trauma victims and what to do and things like that, and it's been a particularly horrific thing, I will find my blood pressure getting up there. So can it bring on muscle armoring? It might. It might. So take a break. Take good care of yourself. Make sure that you've got plenty of water. You're eating as healthy as you can. You're taking breaks. You're doing something fun in between. So when things get too heavy, when I'm writing, especially this 4th book, I'm still working on the 3rd book, which is going to be out this summer. 4th book will probably be out in the fall. But when I'm writing on the 4th book, which is more about, what happens to targets of abuse after the abuse and the lost sense of self and things like that, I will find myself starting to be like, oh my God. So then I'll take a break. I'll go get some water. I'll do something fun, but then I come back to it and keep working. So yeah, if it's getting too much, make sure you stop, take a break, go do something else, and then come back to it. And if it's helping you, keep going. If it's not, don't. So, it's just whatever is working for you. But yes, this is common because remember, the amygdala doesn't know the difference between past, present, future. So for us, when we start writing about things that happened in the past, the amygdala goes, oh my God, here now, here now, here now, here now. And of course, our blood pressure starts going because we're getting ready to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So yeah, so take a break, get some water, eat some healthy food, and then come back to it. But yeah, totally, totally normal. Is it necessary to talk, relive, exposed trauma, and detailed past traumas as part of reprogramming the trauma response? Not necessarily, because think about it. Sometimes we don't remember the trauma, especially if the trauma happened when we were very, very small. So the trauma may be somatic. So the trauma may not be an actual memory cognitively. So, just like that client I was telling you about that got the raw throat, this happened when she was a toddler. So it's like, okay, so there's no memory of it, but there's a body memory of it. So it's enough to know sometimes that there was trauma, and it's enough to know, okay, we have a trauma response. So clearly there was trauma. I don't necessarily need to know what the trauma was. Sometimes that helps. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's really important to start working on, you didn't deserve it. You didn't deserve it. You absolutely did not deserve whatever this trauma was. You did not deserve it. And it's okay for you to breathe, and it's okay for you to start trusting yourself, and it's okay. Do you see where I'm going? So you don't have to. Sometimes it can be helpful. I mean, just like with that client I was telling you about, getting that little piece of information suddenly made a whole bunch of stuff click into place. So it just depends. So, do what works. That's basically the best I can think of. Okay, is this? I think that is it. All right, kids. So next week, I am taking next week off. I've been doing this straight through for over a year now. So I am taking next week off. I'm going to take a break. on the May 23rd show, I want to talk about enmeshment. I want to talk more about what we were talking about with the infantilization, the taking away of the certainty, enmeshing, wanting to be in on everything, that kind of thing. So I want to talk about that. All right. So remember, no show next week, but on May 23rd, I want to talk about enmeshment. I think that would be a really good one. All right, guys, have a great week. Be kind to yourselves. Be good to yourselves. Drink plenty of water. Eat healthy foods. Get some exercise. Take good care of yourself. Trust your body. Listen to your body. Honor your body. That is the important thing. All right, my loves, have a great day, and I will see you in 2 weeks. All right, talk to you later. And don't forget, thank you to my sponsor, betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye.